They say death is peaceful. They lied. Standing in that cold morgue, staring at my own lifeless body, I remembered everything with crystal clarity. How my brother Marcus smiled as he forged my signature one last time, selling my final masterpiece for pocket change while I lay dying in a hospital bed he never visited. How my fiancé David chose my best friend Sarah over me the moment my cancer diagnosis made me damaged goods. How the art world I'd poured my soul into for 15 years dismissed me as a promising amateur, while Marcus passed off my work as his own, building a career on my bleeding heart and sleepless nights. I died alone, broke, and forgotten, a ghost in my own life. But death, it seems, had other plans. The first thing I noticed wasn't the sunlight streaming through my apartment window, or the familiar smell of turpentine and acrylic paint. It was my hands. Young hands, smooth hands, hands that hadn't been ravaged by chemotherapy and hadn't shaken from malnutrition because I chose art supplies over groceries. What the hell? I sat up in bed, my voice cracking like a 13-year-old boy's. But I wasn't 13. I checked my phone. March 15th, 2015. I was 22. Again. My reflection in the black screen showed exactly what I expected and dreaded. My face from 10 years ago, before the stress lines, before the hollow cheeks, before the cancer that ate me alive while everyone I loved picked over my bones like vultures. Elena, you up? Marcus's voice called from outside my studio apartment door, followed by his trademark 3 knocks. I brought coffee. Of course you did, you manipulative bastard. I knew this day, this exact day. This was when it all started, when Marcus convinced me to let him help with my first real sale. In my previous life, I'd been so grateful for his support, so naive about his intentions. This time, I knew better. Coming, I called, wrapping my old bathrobe around myself. Amazing how nothing hurt. No joint pain, no nausea, no exhaustion that felt like drowning in molasses. I felt alive. Ironic, considering I'd literally died to get here. I opened the door to Marcus's $1,000,000 smile. God, he was good at that smile. It had fooled me for 15 years, fooled our parents, fooled everyone except the cancer cells that apparently had better judgment than the rest of us. Morning, sunshine. He handed me a coffee. Venti Pike Place, no cream, extra shot. He remembered how I liked it because he was a good brother, or because he needed me functional enough to paint his ticket to fame. Sleep okay? Like the dead, I said, watching his face for any flicker of recognition. Nothing. Of course not. Time travel wasn't exactly in his wheelhouse. Fraud, theft, and emotional manipulation? Those were his specialties. He laughed, that easy laugh that made everyone trust him instantly. You're weird in the morning. Listen, I was talking to this guy at the gallery yesterday. Which gallery? I interrupted. Marcus paused, coffee cup halfway to his lips. In my first life, I'd never questioned him about details. I'd just nodded along like the grateful little sister who couldn't possibly handle the big, scary art world on her own. Blackwood Gallery, he said carefully. You know, the one downtown with the fancy lighting and the pretentious clientele? Blackwood Gallery. Adrian Blackwood's domain. Even hearing the name sent a chill down my spine, but not for the reasons Marcus thought. Adrian Blackwood was notorious for destroying artists who crossed him, for manipulating markets, for playing games that ruined lives for sport. He was also the man who'd been buying my work through Marcus for years without my knowledge. And, I prompted, and he's interested in your latest piece, the one with the broken mirrors? Marcus gestured toward my easel where Fractured Reflections sat half-finished. In my previous life, this painting sold for $2,000. Marcus told me he got 50. I'd believed him. How much is he offering? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Well, it's not that simple. He wants to see more of your work first, get a feel for your style. How much, Marcus? 200, he said quickly. I know it's not much, but it's a foot in the door, Elle. Once you're in with Blackwood, the sky's the limit. Liar, but this time I was ready to play his game. 200 sounds great, I said, sipping my coffee. When does he want it? Marcus blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. Really? Just like that? Just like that. I set down my coffee and walked to my easel, pretending to examine the painting with fresh eyes. Actually, you know what? I have a better idea. Oh, why don't you set up a meeting? I'd love to meet this Adrian Blackwood in person. The color drained from Marcus's face faster than paint down a sink. That's not how it works, Elle. These gallery owners, they're busy people. They don't meet with unknown artists. But I'm not unknown, I said sweetly. I'm the artist whose work he wants to buy. It's better if I handle the business side. You focus on the art, I'll focus on the sales. That's what brothers are for, right? Right. Brothers were for stealing your work, forging your signature, and building careers on your talent while you slowly died of poverty and heartbreak. You're absolutely right, I said, watching relief flood his features. I don't know what I was thinking. You handle it. Great! Marcus clapped his hands together. I'll call him today. This is going to be great, Elle. I can feel it. You can feel it because you know exactly how much money you're about to steal from me. After Marcus left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, staring at my young hands wrapped around a coffee cup that actually tasted good instead of like the liquid disappointment I'd been choking down in hospital cafeterias. I had knowledge, I had time, and most importantly, I had rage. 10 years of rage, carefully aged and perfectly preserved by the miracle of temporal displacement. It was going to be beautiful. 3 days later, Marcus texted me. Amazing news! Blackwood wants the painting. Can you finish it by Friday? I stared at the message, remembering how excited I'd been the first time. How I'd painted for 18 hours straight, fueled by coffee and dreams of finally being a real artist. This time, I took my time. I made Marcus wait. Elena? He called Thursday afternoon, panic creeping into his voice. The painting? Almost done, I said, not looking up from where I was carefully adding details that hadn't been in the original. This version of Fractured Reflections was going to be special. Just perfecting a few things. Perfecting? Elle, it was already perfect. You always overthink. Are you the artist or am I? Silence, then. Right, sorry, take your time. But I could hear the stress in his voice. He'd probably already told Adrian the painting was ready. Poor Marcus, caught between his scam and his timeline. I finished the painting Friday at noon and called him immediately. It's done. Thank God, I'll be right over. He arrived 15 minutes later with a cardboard tube and bubble wrap, professional packing materials that should have been my first clue he was taking this more seriously than he let on. Wow, he said, stopping in front of the easel. Elle, this is... wow. It was wow. The painting was the same composition as before, a woman's reflection fractured across broken mirror shards, but this time I'd hidden details only someone looking very carefully would notice. Tiny symbols, dates, coordinates, little breadcrumbs for anyone smart enough to follow them. You like it? I love it. Blackwood's going to lose his mind. Marcus carefully lifted the painting from the easel. In a good way. I hope so. I watched him wrap my work like he owned it. Marcus? Yeah. What's Adrian Blackwood like? Marcus paused in his wrapping. Why do you ask? Just curious. I've never sold to a real gallery before. Marcus seemed to choose his words carefully. He's intense. Very serious about art, but fair. Fair. That was rich, coming from the man who was about to steal 90% of my sale price. Does he know my name? Of course he knows your name. You're the artist. And he's specifically interested in my work, not just any work? Marcus's hand stilled on the bubble wrap. What kind of question is that? A reasonable one. I mean, there are thousands of artists in the city. Why me? Because you're talented, Elle. Because your work is special. He resumed wrapping with perhaps a bit more force than necessary. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. The family motto. Don't think, don't question, don't ask for details. Just paint and let Marcus handle everything else. You're right, I said. I'm overthinking. That's my girl. He hoisted the wrapped painting under his arm. I'll call you as soon as I hear back from him. After he left, I pulled out my phone and did something I'd never thought to do in my first life. I Googled Adrian Blackwood. The results were interesting. Adrian Blackwood, 45, owner of Blackwood Gallery, known for discovering emerging artists and launching careers. Also known for ruthless business practices and an uncanny ability to predict market trends. worth an estimated $50 million. dollars. But the interesting part wasn't his bio, it was the photos. In every single picture, Adrian Blackwood looked like he was planning someone's demise. Sharp suits, sharper eyes, and the kind of smile that suggested he knew exactly where all the bodies were buried. This was the man my brother was protecting me from meeting. My phone rang at 6 p.m. Great news. He liked it. He loved it. Wants to buy it immediately. And Marcus paused for dramatic effect. He wants to see more of your work. How much? $50. I blinked. 50? You said 200 yesterday. That was before he saw it. He said it needs work, but he sees potential. $50 is actually really good for a first-time sale, Elle. Most artists don't sell anything for years. In my previous life, this was where I'd started crying, where I'd thanked Marcus for believing in me and accepted that $50 was all my work was worth. This time, I laughed. $50, I repeated, for 18 hours of work. Plus materials, Marcus added helpfully, and the opportunity cost of Marcus. Yeah, that's less than minimum wage. Art isn't about money, Elle. It's about passion, about getting your work out there, about building a career. Exactly. Whose career, Marcus? Silence, long, uncomfortable silence. What do you mean? He finally asked. I mean, if my work is only worth $50, why is Adrian Blackwood interested in seeing more? Why is a gallery owner worth $50 million wasting his time on paintings that are barely worth minimum wage? Elle, you're overthinking again. Am I? Or am I finally thinking the right amount? Look, this is how the art world works. You start small, you build relationships, you get screwed by people you trust. Elena, Marcus's voice had gone cold. Are you accusing me of something? This was it, the moment. In my first life, this was where I backed down, where I apologized for questioning him, where I accepted his story and spent the next 10 years slowly dying while he built an empire on my bones. No, I said quietly. I'm not accusing you of anything. Relief flooded his voice. Good, because I would never. I'm stating a fact. You're lying to me. Silence. $50, Marcus? Really? Elena, how much did he actually offer? I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to say the number, the real number. More silence. Then 2,000. 2,000. Just like before. And just like before, Marcus was planning to keep 97% of it. 2,000, I repeated. But Elle, you have to understand there are fees. Gallery commissions, transportation costs, marketing. How much are you keeping, Marcus? It's not about keeping anything. I'm investing in your future. How much? It's most of it. Most of it. You don't understand how this works. Apparently not. Explain it to me. Elena, you're being unreasonable. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my brother is stealing from me. I would never steal from you. Then give me the $2,000. I can't do that. Why not? Because it's complicated. Uncomplicate. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end of the line. In my first life, this conversation had never happened. I'd been too grateful, too naive, too desperate for any validation to question the details. This time, I had the luxury of already knowing how the story ended. 1,000, he finally said. Excuse me. We'll split it. 1,000 each. That's fair, right? Fair. There was that word again. Marcus? Yeah. Go fuck yourself. I hung up. 5 minutes later, he was pounding on my door. Elena, open up. We need to talk. I let him knock. I made coffee. I sat at my easel and started sketching while my brother had what sounded like a complete breakdown in the hallway. Elena, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. Look, we can work this out. Eventually, Mrs. Patterson from across the hall yelled at him to shut up or she'd call the cops. Marcus went quiet. My phone buzzed with a text. I was trying to protect you. The art world is dangerous. People will take advantage of you. I typed back, like you did? That's different. I'm your brother. Exactly. No response. Another text came an hour later. Can we please talk? I can explain everything. Can you explain why Adrian Blackwood paid $2,000 for a painting you said was worth $50? Yes. Can you explain why you've been lying to me? Yes. Can you explain why I should ever trust you again? No response to that one, but I knew he'd be back. Marcus needed me more than I needed him. He just didn't know that I knew it yet. The next morning, my phone rang at 7 a.m. Miss Vasquez? I didn't recognize the voice. Deep, cultured, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't place. Yes? This is Adrian Blackwood. I believe your brother has been acting as your representative? My heart stopped. Adrian Blackwood was calling me directly. This had never happened before. Mr. Blackwood. I tried to keep my voice steady. What can I do for you? Actually, Miss Vasquez, I was hoping we could meet. There are some things we need to discuss. Adrian Blackwood's gallery occupied the entire ground floor of a converted warehouse in Soho. From the outside, it looked like any other trendy art space. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist signage, the kind of studied casualness that screamed expensive. Inside was a different story. The space was vast and precisely lit, each piece positioned to maximum effect. But it wasn't the art that caught my attention. It was the security. Cameras everywhere, motion sensors. What looked like pressure plates under the hardwood floors. This wasn't just a gallery, it was a fortress. Miss Vasquez. I turned to find Adrian Blackwood watching me from the shadows near a massive abstract sculpture. In person, he was both exactly what I'd expected and completely different. The photos had captured his sharp features and expensive clothes, but they'd missed the way he moved, like a predator pretending to be domesticated. Mr. Blackwood. I walked toward him, hyper-aware of every step. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Thank you for coming. I wasn't certain you would. Why wouldn't I? His smile was razor thin. Your brother seems quite protective of you. He's turned down every request I've made to meet you over the past 3 years. 3 years. Adrian Blackwood had been trying to meet me for 3 years, and Marcus had never mentioned it. 3 years? I kept my voice neutral. Your first painting, Dawn-breaking. I bought it from your brother in 2012. Adrian gestured toward the far wall where a familiar painting hung in a place of honor. I've been collecting your work ever since. My work, on the wall of one of the most prestigious galleries in the city, and I'd never known. How many pieces do you have? 17. 17 paintings. 17 pieces of my soul that Marcus had sold without telling me, that I'd assumed had disappeared into some collector's private collection where I'd never see them again. Would you like to see them? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Adrian led me through the gallery, past works by artists I recognized from museum catalogs and art history textbooks. And interspersed among them, like hidden treasures, were my paintings. This is Night Terrors, Adrian said, stopping in front of a canvas I'd painted during a particularly dark period. I paid your brother $5,000 for it. 5,000. Marcus had told me it sold for 300. And this is Mother's Hands. Another pause. 8,000. Marcus had told me that one didn't sell at all. Mr. Blackwood, I said carefully, what exactly did my brother tell you about me? Quite a lot, actually. That you're fragile, that you don't handle business well, that you're more comfortable letting him manage your career while you focus on the creative side. And you believed him. Adrian's laugh was soft and dangerous. Miss Vasquez, I didn't build this gallery by believing what people tell me. I built it by watching what they do. What has Marcus done? Your brother has been selling me your work for 3 years while telling you it's worth pennies. He's forged your signature on contracts, listed himself as your agent without your knowledge, and created an entire fictional narrative about your mental health to justify keeping you away from buyers. The room spun slightly. I'd known Marcus was stealing from me, but the scope of it, the calculated cruelty of it, was breathtaking. Why are you telling me this? Because, Miss Vasquez, I'm not interested in doing business with your brother anymore. I'm interested in doing business with you. What kind of business? Adrian walked to a window overlooking the street. Your brother thinks he's been playing me, taking advantage of my interest in your work to build his own reputation. What he doesn't realize is that I've been playing him. I don't understand. Every piece I've bought from your brother, every inflated price I've paid, every time I've pretended to believe his stories about your fragility, it's all been leading to this moment. Which moment? Adrian turned to face me, and for the first time, His expression was completely serious. The moment when you realize that your brother has been stealing from you and you decide to do something about it. What makes you think I'll do something about it? Because yesterday you told him to go fuck himself. I stared at him. How do you know that? Miss Vasquez, your brother calls me after every interaction he has with you. He's been doing it for years. Yesterday he called in a panic, convinced you were going to expose him. Are you recording our conversations? No, but Marcus is so terrified of losing his golden goose that he documents everything. Just in case he needs to convince someone, me, your parents, a psychiatrist, that you're unstable. The room was definitely spinning now. I sat down heavily in one of the gallery's strategically placed chairs. You're saying my brother has been recording me? I'm saying your brother has been building a case against your mental health for 3 years, just in case you ever figured out what he was doing. Why would you help me? You barely know me. Adrian sat down across from me, his hands folded in his lap like a therapist about to deliver bad news. Miss Vasquez, how much do you know about the art market? Not much, apparently. It's a game. A very expensive, very complicated game where information is currency and reputation is everything. Your brother thinks he's been playing the game. In reality, he's been a pawn. Whose pawn? Mine. I stared at him. You've been manipulating my brother? I've been allowing your brother to manipulate himself. There's a difference. What's the difference? Intent. Adrian leaned forward. Your brother intended to deceive me about your work's value. I intended to let him. Your brother intended to steal from you. I intended to document it. Your brother intended to build a career on your talent. I intended to make sure you eventually found out. Why? Because, Miss Vasquez, your brother is small-time, a petty thief with delusions of grandeur. But you? Adrian gestured toward the walls where my paintings hung like captured light. You're going to change the art world. That's quite a prediction. It's not a prediction. It's a fact. Because I'm going to make sure it happens. I looked around the gallery again, seeing it with new eyes. The security, the careful lighting, the way my work was displayed alongside pieces worth millions. This wasn't just a gallery, it was a shrine. What do you want from me? I want you to let your brother continue selling your work. Excuse me. I want you to go home, call Marcus, apologize for yesterday, and tell him you want to continue your business relationship. I stared at him. Are you insane? Quite possibly, but I'm also very good at what I do, which is making artists wealthy. By letting them get robbed? By letting them get robbed until the moment when the robbery becomes evidence. Adrian stood and walked to a filing cabinet tucked discreetly behind the reception desk. He returned with a thick folder. 3 years of receipts, contracts, and recorded conversations. Every lie your brother has told you, every dollar he's stolen, every document he's forged. Adrian set the folder on the table between us. Everything you need to destroy him. I opened the folder, page after page of evidence. Bank records showing deposits for thousands of dollars on the same days Marcus had told me paintings sold for hundreds. Contracts with my signature that I'd never signed. Audio files labeled with dates and times. You've been building a case against my brother for 3 years? I've been building a case for you for 3 years. Why? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, studying something in the distance only he could see. Because, Miss Vasquez, talent like yours deserves better than being stolen. I closed the folder, my mind racing. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership. You continue letting Marcus sell your work, but now you know the real prices. I continue buying from him, but the prices get higher, much higher. How high? Your next painting will sell for $20,000. By the end of the year, we'll be talking about 6 figures. My mouth went dry. 6 figures? At minimum. And Marcus? Marcus will continue taking his cut, building his reputation, getting comfortable. Right up until the moment when we expose him publicly and you claim credit for all the work he's been passing off as his connections. That's quite a plan. That's just the beginning of the plan. What's the rest of it? Adrian smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuine. Miss Vasquez, how do you feel about changing the entire art world? Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. Adrian glanced at it and his expression darkened. Speak of the devil. Marcus? He's outside. He's been calling you for an hour. I checked my phone. 12 missed calls. He's probably worried I'm exposing him. Oh, he's definitely worried about that. Adrian stood. Miss Vasquez, I'm going to ask you to trust me for the next 10 minutes. Why? Because your brother is about to come in here and tell you a very compelling story about how I'm dangerous and you should never trust me. Some of it might even be true. And I want you to remember that everything he's about to say to protect you, he's saying to protect himself. The gallery's front door chimed, and Marcus burst in like a man on fire. Elena, thank God! He rushed toward me, then stopped short when he saw Adrian. Mr. Blackwood. Marcus. Adrian's voice was arctic. How nice to see you. I've been calling Elena all morning. When I couldn't reach her, I was worried something had happened. What could have happened? I asked. Marcus glanced between Adrian and me, clearly trying to read the situation. Elle, we need to talk, privately. Actually, Adrian said smoothly, I was just telling Miss Vasquez about some upcoming opportunities. Perhaps you'd like to hear about them as well? That's very kind, but Ellen and I have some family business to discuss. Family business? I stood up. What kind of family business? Marcus's jaw tightened. The kind we should discuss at home. I'm comfortable discussing it here. Elena. Marcus. I looked him straight in the eye. What's so urgent that you've been calling me for an hour? Marcus glanced at Adrian again, who was watching the exchange with the detached interest of someone observing laboratory specimens. It's about yesterday, Marcus said finally. About our conversation. What about it? I owe you an apology. I blinked. In my first life, Marcus had never apologized for anything. Ever. Go on. I should have been more upfront about the business side. You're right, you deserve to know the details. What details? Marcus took a deep breath. Mr. Blackwood has been paying premium prices for your work. The real amount for your latest painting was $2,000, just like I said. And I've been using most of that money to cover expenses. Gallery fees, marketing, transportation, storage. How much in expenses? About $1,800. So I was still only getting $200 out of $2,000. Marcus was apologizing for stealing slightly less than I thought. That seems like a lot of expenses, I said carefully. The art world is expensive, Elle, but the important thing is building relationships, establishing your reputation. Marcus, Adrian interrupted quietly. Perhaps you should tell her about the other paintings. Marcus went pale. Other paintings? The 17 pieces I've purchased over the past 3 years. I watched Marcus's face cycle through confusion, panic, and finally resignation. You told her. I told her the truth. Mr. Blackwood, with all due respect, Elena isn't ready for the business side of art. She's fragile. Am I? I asked. Marcus turned to me with desperate eyes. Elle, you are. You know you are. Remember when you couldn't get out of bed for a week after that gallery rejected your portfolio? Remember when you cried for 3 days because someone criticized your color choices online? I did remember, and Marcus had been there, comforting me, telling me the art world was cruel and I was too sensitive for it, telling me he'd handle the business so I could focus on creating. That was 3 years ago, I said. People don't change, Elle. You're still the same sensitive person who needs protection from what? From success? From knowing that my work is worth more than minimum wage? From people who would take advantage of you. The irony was so thick I could taste it. People like who, Marcus? Marcus glanced at Adrian. People like him. What about Adrian would take advantage of me? Elena. Adrian Blackwood is known for manipulating artists. He builds them up just to tear them down. He's destroyed more careers than he's built. I looked at Adrian, who was listening to this character assassination with apparent amusement. Is that true? Some of it, Adrian admitted. I have destroyed careers. Generally the careers of people who try to cheat me. Marcus stepped between us. Elle, you need to be very careful here. This man is dangerous. More dangerous than someone who steals from his own sister. I never stole from you. 17 paintings, Marcus. 17 paintings worth thousands of dollars each, and you told me they sold for hundreds or didn't sell at all. I was protecting the money for you, building your reputation, making connections. Where's the money, Marcus? Silence. Where's the money from 17 paintings? There were expenses. Bullshit. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Where's my money? Marcus looked like a trapped animal. Elena, please, just come home with me. We can sort this out privately. We're sorting it out now, not in front of him. Why not? Adrian's the one who's been paying for my work. Shouldn't he hear how his money was spent? Elle, you're making a mistake. If you trust him, you'll regret it. The way I regretted trusting you? Marcus flinched like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed and it came out bitter. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that you've been selling my work for 3 years without telling me? Is it fair that you've been keeping 90% of the money? Is it fair that you've been recording our conversations and building a case against my mental health just in case I figured out what you were doing? Marcus went white. He told you about the recordings. Are you denying it? I was protecting myself in case someone ever accused me of taking advantage of you. Someone like me? Elena, please, get out. What? Get out of here, Marcus, now. Elena, you're making a huge mistake. The mistake was trusting you. Get out. Marcus looked between Adrian and me one more time, desperation written across his face. This isn't over, he said finally. Yes, it is. After Marcus left, Adrian and I sat in silence for several minutes. I stared at my paintings on his walls, trying to process the fact that my work, my actual work, was hanging in one of the most prestigious galleries in the city. Well, Adrian said eventually, that went better than expected. Better? I just destroyed my relationship with my brother. You ended an abusive relationship with someone who was stealing from you. There's a difference. He's still my brother. Yes. And I'm sure that makes this more complicated. I looked at Adrian, this man who'd just blown up my life and offered to rebuild it. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, Adrian said immediately. You should never trust anyone in the art world completely, including me. That's not very reassuring. It's not meant to be, it's meant to be honest. So what now? Adrian smiled. Now, Miss Vasquez, we discuss your future. Your future, Adrian continued, depends on understanding that what just happened with your brother is small-time fraud. What I'm about to propose is art market manipulation on a scale that could change your life forever. I looked around the gallery again, at my paintings hanging next to works worth millions, at the sophisticated security system, at Adrian himself, who radiated the kind of confidence that came from always being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I'm listening. Good. Adrian pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. Do you know what your work is actually worth? Apparently more than I thought. Much more. The 17 pieces I've bought from your brother, I've had them independently appraised. Conservative estimate puts their current market value at around $300,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. 300,000? That's if we sold them today, as unknowns. But Elena, you're not going to remain unknown. What does that mean? Adrian set his phone on the table between us. The screen showed what looked like a complex spreadsheet with dates, names, and dollar amounts. It means we're going to artificially inflate the market for your work until you become too valuable to ignore. How? Controlled scarcity, strategic placement, and manufactured controversy. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Your brother thinks he stumbled onto a talented artist he could exploit. He has no idea he's been helping me stockpile works by the next art world sensation. You're talking about market manipulation. I'm talking about marketing. Every successful artist's career involves some degree of market manipulation. We're just going to be more systematic about it. And in return? In return, you let Marcus continue selling your work, but now the prices start climbing. $20,000 for the next piece. $50,000 for the one after that. By the end of the year, we'll be talking about 6-figure sales? I stared at the numbers on his phone. And Marcus keeps taking his cut? Marcus keeps taking his cut and digging his own grave. Every transaction he makes under false pretenses, every forged signature, every lie he tells you about prices, it all becomes evidence. Evidence for what? For the lawsuit that's going to destroy him and establish you as the rightful creator of all the work he's been claiming credit for. The cold calculation in Adrian's voice sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just about money or justice. This was about complete annihilation. You really hate my brother, don't you? I don't hate your brother, Elena. I don't think about your brother at all, but I despise thieves and I despise people who think they can manipulate me. What makes you think Marcus was trying to manipulate you? Adrian laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your brother has been feeding me stories about your mental health for 3 years, trying to convince me that you're too unstable to handle your own career. He's been positioning himself as your protector while systematically stealing from you. If that's not manipulation, what is? Maybe he actually believes I need protection. Do you believe that? I thought about the recordings Marcus had made, the fictional narrative he'd created about my fragility, the way he'd intercepted every opportunity I might have had to speak for myself. No? Then we understand each other. I picked up Adrian's phone and scrolled through the spreadsheet. Names I didn't recognize, dates going back years, amounts that made my head spin. What is this? Market research, every artist whose career I've built over the past decade. Their sale prices, exhibition history, media coverage. Adrian pointed to a specific column, and their current net worth. The numbers were staggering. Artists I'd never heard of with net worths in the millions. You did this for all of them? I did this with all of them. There's a difference. What's the difference? Partnership versus patronage. I don't discover artists, Elena. I create them. I set the phone down carefully. That sounds like you're playing God. I'm playing the market. God doesn't need spreadsheets. Despite everything, I found myself laughing. You're completely amoral, aren't you? I prefer the term strategically flexible. And you want me to be strategically flexible too? I want you to be rich and famous. The methods are negotiable. I looked at my paintings on his walls again. In my first life, I died never knowing that my work hung in a prestigious gallery, that someone had valued it enough to pay thousands of dollars for it. What if I say no? Then you walk away with enough evidence to destroy your brother, but you remain a small-time artist selling work for hundreds instead of hundreds of thousands. And if I say yes, then in 2 years you'll be one of the most famous artists in the country, and your brother will be facing federal fraud charges. Federal? Adrian's smile was sharp. Tax evasion, mail fraud, wire fraud, forgery. Marcus has been very thorough in his criminal activities. You've been documenting federal crimes for 3 years and didn't report them? I've been waiting for the right moment to report them. A moment when the victim, you, would benefit maximally from the exposure. The scope of Adrian's planning was breathtaking. He'd been orchestrating this entire scenario for years, positioning all the pieces for this exact conversation. How do I know you won't do the same thing to me that you're planning to do to Marcus? You don't. His honesty was somehow more reassuring than any promise would have been. But, Adrian continued, there's one crucial difference between you and your brother. Which is? You create the value, Marcus only steals it. I can replace Marcus with any number of middlemen, but I can't replace you. So I'm valuable to you. You're essential to me. Why? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice had lost its calculating edge. Because, Elena, you paint like someone who understands that art is supposed to break people's hearts and put them back together differently. I stared at him. It was the first thing he'd said that felt completely genuine. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Most artists paint what they see. You paint what they feel. That's rare. Rare enough to be worth federal crimes. Rare enough to be worth whatever it takes. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Elena, please call me. We need to talk. I showed the message to Adrian. He's panicking, Adrian observed. Probably trying to figure out how much damage control he needs to do. What should I tell him? Tell him you're sorry for overreacting. Tell him you want to continue working together. Tell him you trust him to handle the business side. You want me to lie to him? I want you to give him enough rope to hang himself with. Another text from Marcus. I love you, Elle. Everything I did was to protect you. I stared at the message. In my first life, those words would have worked. I would have believed him, apologized, gone back to painting in obscurity while he built his career on my talent. This time I knew better. How long do we have? I asked Adrian. How long for what? Until the market crash you mentioned. Until whatever's coming that made you stockpile my work in the first place. Adrian went very still. What makes you think there's a market crash coming? Shit. I'd let slip information from my previous life, from years I hadn't lived yet. Just the way you've been talking, like you're preparing for something. Adrian studied my face carefully. Elena, how much do you know about market trends? Nothing. I just paint. Then why do you think a crash is coming? I scrambled for a plausible explanation. Because you're talking about manipulating the market instead of just letting my work sell naturally. That suggests you're trying to maximize value quickly, before something changes. Adrian relaxed slightly. You're more perceptive than I gave you credit for. So there is a crash coming. There's always a crash coming. The art market is cyclical. Boom, bust, boom, bust. The key is timing your moves correctly. And you think now is the right time for my boom? I think now is the only time for your boom. Why? Adrian pulled out another folder, this one thinner than the evidence file. Inside were newspaper clippings, magazine articles, and what looked like financial reports. The contemporary art market is about to undergo a massive correction, he said, spreading the papers across the table. Too many mediocre artists commanding high prices, too much speculation, too many collectors treating art like cryptocurrency. I scanned the articles. They were all dated within the past few months, and they all painted a picture of an art market on the verge of collapse. When? 18 months, maybe less. 18 months in my previous life, that was right around when I'd been diagnosed with cancer, when everything had started falling apart. What happens to artists when the market crashes? Most of them disappear. Their prices collapse, their galleries drop them, their collectors move on to the next trend. But not all of them. Not the ones who are too big to fail. Not the ones whose reputations are bulletproof. I looked at my paintings on his walls, imagining them worth millions instead of thousands. You want to make me too big to fail. I want to make you essential. By the time the crash comes, your work will be in museums, private collections, and investment portfolios worldwide. You'll be untouchable. And Marcus? Marcus will be in federal prison. I picked up my phone and typed a response to Marcus. I'm sorry for overreacting. Can we talk tomorrow? His reply came immediately. Thank God, yes, I'll come by in the morning. I showed the message to Adrian. Perfect, he said. Tomorrow you apologize and tell him you want to paint something new. Something special. What kind of something special? Adrian smiled, and this time it looked genuinely excited. Something that's going to make your brother very, very rich, right before it destroys him. The next morning, I was mixing paints when Marcus knocked on my door. I'd barely slept, my mind spinning with everything Adrian had told me. Federal crimes, market manipulation, art worth millions. And somewhere in all of it, the nagging feeling that I was forgetting something important. Elle? Marcus's voice through the door sounded tentative. It's me. I opened the door to find my brother holding a bouquet of daisies, my favorite flowers, and wearing the expression of a kicked puppy. Peace offering, he said, holding up the flowers. They're beautiful. I took them, noting that they were expensive daisies, the kind that cost $50 instead of $10. Come in. Marcus stepped into my apartment cautiously, like he was expecting an ambush. How are you feeling? Better, I said, arranging the flowers in a mason jar. I think I overreacted yesterday. Relief flooded his face. You had every right to be upset. I should have been more transparent about the business side. It's a lot to process, you know? Finding out that my work is worth more than I thought. I know, and I'm sorry I didn't explain it better from the beginning. Marcus sat down at my kitchen table, the same spot where he'd had breakfast 1,000 times over the years. In my first life, this was where he'd told me about David's cheating, where he'd comforted me through my heartbreak while secretly orchestrating it. David. Shit, I'd been so focused on Marcus and Adrian that I'd forgotten about David. Marcus, I said carefully, are you still in touch with David Chen? My brother's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been guilt. David, yeah, occasionally. Why? Just curious. I haven't seen him since college. He's doing well, working at that tech startup downtown. Always asks about you when I run into him. In my previous life, David had randomly encountered me at a coffee shop next week. We'd started dating within a month, engaged within a year. I'd thought it was fate. Now I wondered if it had been as orchestrated as everything else. Maybe I should look him up, I said, watching Marcus's reaction. That's a great idea, Elle. You two always had good chemistry. Did we? I barely remember him. Oh, you definitely did. He had such a crush on you senior year. Interesting. In my first life, David had claimed he'd barely noticed me in college. Maybe you could give him my number? Absolutely. Marcus pulled out his phone immediately. I'll text him right now. Too eager, way too eager. Actually, I said, maybe don't mention that I asked about him. I'd rather it seem natural if we run into each other. Marcus paused, thumb hovering over his phone screen. Natural? You know, like fate. Right, fate. Marcus put his phone away. So about your work, what about it? Mr. Blackwood wants to commission something specific. This was new. In my previous life, Adrian had never commissioned work directly. What kind of specific? He didn't give me details, just said he wants something larger than your usual pieces. Something significant. How much larger? 4 feet by 6 feet, and he's willing to pay $20,000 for it. $20,000, exactly what Adrian had predicted. $20,000? I know it sounds like a lot. It sounds amazing. What's the catch? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. No catch. He just wants it finished within 2 weeks. 2 weeks for a piece that size? That's barely enough time. That's what I told him, but he said time is a factor. Time. Always time. In my previous life, I'd never had enough time. Time to establish myself, time to build a reputation, time to live. Did he say why time is a factor? Something about an upcoming exhibition. He wants to include your work, but the deadline is firm. I pretended to consider it. $20,000 is a lot of money. It is. After expenses, you'd be looking at about $4,000. $4,000 out of $20,000. Marcus was getting bolder with his theft. What kind of expenses? Gallery commission, insurance, transportation, marketing materials. Marcus rattled off the list like he'd memorized it. The art world is expensive, Elle. Right, the art world. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey, Elena, this is David Chen from college. Marcus gave me your number. Hope that's okay. I showed the message to Marcus, who tried to look surprised. Wow, what a coincidence. Isn't it just, I typed back, David, of course it's okay. How are you? Marcus watched me text with barely concealed satisfaction. You should invite him over, Marcus suggested. Let him see your work. Why would he want to see my work? Are you kidding? David was always interested in art. He'd love to see how talented you've become. In my previous life, David had claimed to know nothing about art. Claimed he was learning about it because he loved me. Maybe I will. Great. And Elle, maybe don't mention the Blackwood Commission yet. You know how weird people get about money. Of course not. After Marcus left, I called Adrian. How did it go? He offered me $20,000 for a large commission. And my college friend David just texted me out of nowhere. Ah, David Chen. You know about David? I know about everyone in your brother's network. David Chen, 28, software engineer, currently dating Sarah Martinez, your former best friend. Sarah, of course Sarah was already in the picture. They're dating? For 6 months, but according to the conversations I've recorded between Marcus and David, that's about to change. You've recorded conversations between Marcus and David? Elena, I've recorded everything. Your brother has been planning your romantic life the same way he's been planning your career. What do you mean? I mean, David Chen was instructed to reconnect with you this week. He's been paid to date you? to keep you emotionally dependent and to ensure you don't get too ambitious about your career. The room spun. In my previous life, David had been the love of my life, the man I'd planned to marry, the man who'd abandoned me when I got sick. He'd been a paid actor the entire time. How much? Excuse me. How much is Marcus paying David to date me? Adrian was quiet for a moment. 500 a month plus bonuses for relationship milestones. Milestones? First date, first kiss, moving in together, engagement. I sat down heavily. Marcus paid David to propose to me? He paid David a $10,000 bonus when you got engaged. $10,000 for fake love. Elena, are you there? I'm here. My voice sounded strange, even to me. How long have you known about this? Since the beginning, David approached Marcus about reconnecting with you 3 years ago, right around the time I started buying your work. David's been planning this for 3 years? David's been taking orders for 3 years. This was Marcus's idea. Of course it was. Marcus, orchestrating every aspect of my life while I painted myself into oblivion, grateful for any scrap of affection or validation. What's his plan? Keep you distracted and emotionally dependent while he builds his career on your work. Then, when you're no longer useful, David disappears and Marcus moves on to his next victim. His next victim? Elena, you're not your brother's first artist. You're just his most talented. The phone slipped from my hand. I stared at the ceiling of my apartment, trying to process the scope of Marcus's betrayal. It wasn't just theft. It was systematic emotional manipulation spanning years. Elena? Adrian's voice came through the phone speaker. I picked it up. I'm here. I know this is a lot to process. You could say that. Do you want to call off the plan? Walk away now before it gets more complicated? I thought about my previous life. Dying alone in a hospital bed while David chose Sarah and Marcus, sold my final painting for pocket change. Dying invisible, forgotten. Erased from my own story. No. Are you sure? I'm sure, but I want to change something. What? I want to fuck with David the way he's planning to fuck with me. Adrian's laugh was genuinely delighted. Now you're thinking like an art dealer. What do you suggest? Date him. Let him think his plan is working, but document everything, every lie he tells you, every manipulation he attempts, every moment of fake intimacy. Why? Because, Elena, when this is over, you're not just going to destroy your brother, you're going to destroy everyone who helped him. Including David? Especially David. I looked at David's text message, still waiting for a response. How do I play this? Like you're falling for it. Be the grateful, naive girl they expect you to be. Let David think he's charming you. Let Marcus think he's protecting you. Let them both think they're smarter than you are. And then we show them exactly how smart you really are. I typed a response to David. I'd love to catch up. Are you free for coffee sometime? His reply came immediately. How about tomorrow afternoon? I know a great place downtown. I showed the message to Adrian when he called back. Perfect. Cafe Luna, I'm guessing? How did you know? It's where David took Sarah on their first date. He's not very creative. Should I say yes? Absolutely, but Elena? Yeah. Wear something nice. If you're going to destroy someone, you might as well look good doing it. Cafe Luna was exactly the kind of place designed to look accidentally romantic. Exposed brick walls, vintage Edison bulbs, and the kind of carefully curated shabby chic that cost a fortune to achieve. David was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffee cups in front of him. He looked exactly like I remembered. Tall, lean, with the kind of effortlessly tousled hair that suggested he'd just rolled out of bed but had actually taken 45 minutes to style. In my previous life, I'd found him devastatingly attractive. Now, knowing he was essentially a prostitute hired by my brother, the effect was somewhat diminished. Elena! David stood up as I approached, and his smile was magazine perfect. You look amazing. Thank you. You look good, too. He did look good. Marcus had excellent taste in hired boyfriends. I got you a cappuccino, David said, gesturing to one of the cups. I remembered you liked them. Interesting. In my previous life, David had claimed he'd forgotten how I liked my coffee. You have a good memory. For important things. I sat down across from him, hyper aware that everything he was about to say was essentially a performance. So, David said, settling back into his chair, Marcus tells me you're really making a name for yourself as an artist. I wouldn't say making a name, I'm just painting. Don't be modest. Marcus showed me some pictures of your work. It's incredible. Marcus had shown him pictures. Of course he had. That's sweet of him. He's really proud of you. Always talks about how talented you are, how you're going to be famous someday. Does he? All the time. It's actually how you came up in conversation. I was telling him about this art exhibition my company is sponsoring, and he immediately started talking about you. David leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. Everything about him was expensive: his clothes, his watch, his haircut. Either tech startups paid better than I thought, or Marcus was being very generous with my money. What kind of exhibition? Contemporary artists, mostly local talent. My boss is really into supporting emerging artists. That sounds wonderful. I was thinking, maybe you'd let me see some of your work? I'd love to recommend you for the exhibition. And there it was, the hook. In my previous life, this opportunity had been what convinced me David was serious about me. A successful man who wanted to help my career. That's incredibly generous. Not generous, smart. I have a feeling you're going to be a big deal, and I want to say I knew you when. David's smile was warm and genuine looking. If I didn't know he was being paid to sit here, I might have believed him. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. Why now? I mean, we barely talked in college. What made you think to reach out? David's smile flickered, just for a moment, and I saw him mentally reaching for his script. Honestly, I always had a bit of a crush on you in college. But you seemed so focused on your art, so intense. I was intimidated. Intimidated? You had this way of looking at things like you could see right through them, like you understood something the rest of us didn't. It was a good line, flattering without being over the top, specific enough to seem genuine. And now? Now I'm older and hopefully a little braver. Brave enough for what? David reached across the table and touched my hand. His fingers were warm and his touch was gentle, and for just a moment, I remembered what it felt like to believe someone cared about me. Brave enough to tell you I think you're extraordinary. Extraordinary. The same word he'd used in my previous life when he proposed. David, I know it's presumptuous, we just reconnected, but Elena, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since Marcus mentioned you were back in the city. Marcus mentioned I was back in the city. Another flicker in David's expression. I mean, since he mentioned you were doing so well with your art, lie number one, I'd never left the city. Right. I'd really like to get to know you again, if you're interested. David was still holding my hand, his thumb tracing small circles on my skin. In my previous life, this gesture had made my heart race. Now it made my skin crawl. I'd like that too, I said. Relief flooded David's face. Really? Really, but can I ask you something else? Anything. What happened with you and Sarah Martinez? David went very still. Sarah Martinez. My friend from college. Marcus mentioned you two had been dating. Oh, that. David released my hand and reached for his coffee. That was brief. It didn't work out. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. Sarah's great, but we weren't compatible. She wanted different things. What kind of different things? She's very focused on her career, didn't have much time for relationships. Lie number two. Sarah had always been desperate for a boyfriend. That's too bad. Yeah, well, David shrugged. Maybe it was for the best. If I'd stayed with Sarah, I never would have worked up the courage to call you. His smile was back, warm and inviting. So you're saying I should thank Sarah for breaking up with you? You should thank her for helping me realize what I really wanted. Which is... David leaned forward again, his eyes intense. A chance with someone extraordinary. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it. Adrian, how's the performance going? Sorry, I said to David. Work thing. No problem. Actually, speaking of work, I should probably head back soon, but before I go... David pulled out his phone. Can I get your number? I'd love to take you to dinner this week. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers, and David walked me to the subway station. As we stood on the corner, he touched my arm gently. Elena, I'm really glad Marcus gave me your number. Me too. David leaned down and kissed my cheek, his lips lingering just a moment longer than friendly. I'll call you tomorrow. I watched him walk away, noting the confidence in his stride, the way he checked his reflection in store windows. David Chen was a man who knew he was attractive and knew how to use it. In my previous life, I'd fallen for every second of his act. My phone rang as soon as I got underground. Well, Adrian's voice. He's good, really good. Most professional manipulators are... The exhibition story was clever, offering to help my career while actually sabotaging it. Classic technique, make the victim feel grateful for their own exploitation. I found a seat on the train and lowered my voice. He slipped up twice, though. Oh, said I was back in the city when I never left and claimed Sarah broke up with him because she was too career-focused. Sloppy, he's probably nervous. Or overconfident. Either way, it works in our favor. How do you want to play the next date? I thought about David's hand on mine, his practiced smile, the way he'd delivered lines I now knew he'd used on Sarah just months ago. I want to make him work for it. Meaning I'm not going to be the easy mark they're expecting. I'm going to be just enough of a challenge to make him think he's earning his money. Adrian's laugh was approving. And how do you plan to do that? By being the woman I should have been the first time around. David called the next evening while I was working on Adrian's commission. A massive canvas that was taking shape as something between a landscape and a fever dream. Elena, it's David. Hi, how was your day? Good, better now that I'm talking to you. Smooth. This man was very smooth. That's sweet. I was wondering if you're free for dinner Friday. There's this great Italian place I've been wanting to try. Friday sounds perfect. Great. I'll pick you up at 7? Actually, I said, adding a deliberate pause. Would you mind if we met there instead? I'm working on a big project and I'm not sure exactly when I'll be done. Silence on David's end. In my previous life, I'd always been available whenever he wanted to see me. Of course, he said finally. Whatever works for you. Thank you for understanding. What's the name of the restaurant? Bella Nata. It's on Spring Street. After we hung up, I Googled Bella Nata. Expensive. The kind of place where dinner for two costs more than I used to make in a week. I called Adrian. Bella Nata on Friday. That mean anything to you? Should it? Just wondering if it's where David took Sarah. Give me a minute. I heard typing in the background. No, David took Sarah to Osteria Morini. Bella Nata is actually a good choice. Intimate, but not too intimate. Expensive enough to seem impressive, but not so expensive it looks like he's trying too hard. So he's stepping up his game. Or Marcus is. This level of calculation usually comes from the puppet master, not the puppet. Speaking of Marcus, he stopped by today to check on the commission. And he asked a lot of questions about my dating life. What kind of questions? Whether I was seeing anyone, whether I was interested in meeting someone, whether I thought David seemed nice. He's managing both sides of the operation. It's impressive in a sociopathic way. Elena, there's something else we need to discuss. What? The commission you're working on. Marcus doesn't know what it really is. What do you mean? He thinks I want a landscape, something pretty and sellable. And what do you actually want? I want you to paint what you see when you look at the art world. I paused, brush halfway to canvas. What I see? The corruption, the manipulation, the way talent gets devoured by people who produce nothing themselves. Paint the truth, Elena. That's not going to be pretty and sellable. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be evidence. Evidence of what? Of the fact that you're not the naive little girl your brother thinks you are. Of the fact that you understand exactly what's been done to you. I looked at the canvas, seeing it with new eyes. What I'd thought was a landscape was actually something much darker. Twisted trees that looked like grasping hands. A sky the color of old blood. Shadows that moved when you weren't looking directly at them. Adrian? Yes? What happens after Marcus sees this painting? Marcus realizes he's been underestimating you. And then he makes his first real mistake. Friday evening, I arrived at Bellinat, 15 minutes late, wearing a black dress that hugged in all the right places and heels that made me 3 inches taller. If David was going to perform being attracted to me, I was going to make sure he worked for his money. He was waiting at the bar, checking his phone every few seconds. When he saw me, his face lit up with what looked like genuine relief. Elena, you look incredible. Thank you. Sorry I'm late, lost track of time working. No problem at all. Should we get our table? The hostess led us to a corner booth with soft lighting and enough privacy for intimate conversation. David had clearly planned this carefully. So, David said after we'd ordered wine, tell me about this project you're working on. Marcus mentioned it's a big commission. It is. Someone wants a large piece for their private collection. That's exciting. What's the subject? I twirled my wine glass, considering how much to reveal. It's hard to describe. Sort of a landscape, but more interpretive. Interpretive how? Like, what if a landscape could show you not just what a place looks like, but what it feels like to be there? What it means? David leaned forward, genuinely interested. That sounds fascinating. It's challenging. The client has very specific ideas about what they want. Most collectors do. It's their money, after all. Is it, though? David paused with his wine glass halfway to his lips. What do you mean? I mean, when someone commissions art whose vision matters more, the person paying for it or the person creating it? Well, I guess it depends on the arrangement. Does it? Because it seems like money always wins. David set down his wine glass and studied my face. That's a pretty cynical view. Is it cynical if it's true? I don't know. Is it true? I shrugged. I'm still figuring that out. Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of our appetizers, some kind of elaborate seafood thing that probably cost more than most people's grocery budget. Can I ask you something? David said after we'd eaten in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Of course. What made you want to be an artist? The question caught me off guard. In my previous life, David had never asked about my motivations, only my plans. I don't think I chose it, I said finally. I think it chose me. That sounds mystical. Maybe it is. When I was little, I used to see colors that weren't there, not hallucinations. I added quickly, seeing David's expression. Just emotional colors. When people were sad, I'd see gray around them. When they were angry, red. When they were lying. What color is lying? Yellow, sickly yellow, like old mustard. David went very still. And you still see these colors? Sometimes. What color do you see around me? I looked at David carefully, as if I were seeing auras instead of just seeing through his bullshit. Green, I said finally. What does green mean? Growth, potential, new beginnings. David relaxed, smiling. I like that. Liar. If I really saw auras, David would be surrounded by that sickly yellow he'd asked about. What about around yourself? David asked. I don't see my own colors. It doesn't work that way. Why not? Because you can't see yourself clearly. You need distance for perspective. David nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. We talked for 2 more hours about art, about college, about his work at the tech startup. David was charming and attentive, asking follow-up questions and remembering details from earlier in the conversation. He was also lying about approximately 60% of what he told me. This has been wonderful, David said as we waited for the check. I'd love to do it again soon. I'd like that too.